Thanks for staying with us. So we're still discussing this issue of insecurity. It's a major problem in Nigeria. So we have on the show today Mr. Tony Ofoyeton. He's a securities expert. Welcome to the show, sir.
Good morning, my sister.
Good morning. So there are two key issues. I mean, according to reports, the majority leader of the House of Representatives, Doguwa, APC Kano, has called for firearms permits for Nigerians willing to defend themselves in the face of the failure of the security agencies to protect lives and properties. So that is an issue. And then Governor El-Rufai also saying, listen, I need to get foreign mercenaries to help support what they have in Kaduna State right now. So we're asking you as a security expert, what are your thoughts on El-Rufai's pronouncements? And secondly, do you think or do you agree Nigerians should be allowed to carry arms?
Well, thanks for having me on the show. The issue of self-defense, as it is now, if I say no, the question would be what would be the alternative solution. The primary agency responsible for the protection of lives and property are government-established security agencies, which are the state actors as far as security is concerned, police and the armed forces and the NSCDC. Then, of course, you talk of other paramilitary agencies, inclusive of the DSS and the like. Now, having said that, a combination of all these activities now, their services seems not very satisfactory to the average Nigerian. You don't need to be told that almost everywhere there's one security challenge or the other. In the air, on the road, on the rail, at home, in your village, everywhere, even in metropolitan cities and the like. I want to believe that it was on that strength that you have the members of the National Assembly calling for the imperativeness of self-defense. But the issue of whether Nigeria can bear arms, as far as some of us are concerned, there is nothing wrong in having a try of what we think may be a solution. If you bear arm, I bear arm. It's a 50-50 chance that you will be victorious over me. Now, but having said so, the challenge is always how do we manage this arm? When we are talking about proliferation of arms already, you are talking about the psychological balance of those that will bear the arms and the like. I think the government will now look at it from a different perspective, rather than individuals bearing arms. I would want to suggest that the paramilitary agencies, established state paramilitary agencies, like the Amoteco, maybe the Sokoto Mastal, the Doguwa and the like, should be trained to bear arms with strict regulation and have specific arms that they can bear. Now that would be more or less like complementing the efforts of other security agencies. Because whether you believe it or not, whether you like it or not, our security agencies, especially the military, they are overwhelmed. We have 36 states, inclusive of FCTA, but as we speak, we have military operation in 33 states. When we are not in war, and look at it, who are we warring against? We are fighting against ourselves. Now that means that the military ordinary that should be talking about the external aggression is not attending to internal security challenges.
Mr. Ofoyeton, let me come in here for a second, because last week we had the MD of the Nigerian Railway Services, and he said and he confirmed that there were 18 armed personnel on that train. For some reason, they were overwhelmed. So even though you arm these paramilitary operatives across board, how many really can you have per time in schools, in trains, in planes, and on the road? How many can we have? These bandits overpowered them, according to the MD.
Anyway, let's not be pretentious about some of these things. I don't believe that a trained military officer. The question is, was there any form of resistance? If you have, say, you have 18 military officers, armed officers on the train, were there any form of resistance? Now, if there's no form of resistance, then the issue of overpowering will not come. That's one of the, But as far as I'm concerned, security comprises a lot of things. Technology is also part of security. To what extent have we been able to deploy technology? Now, coming to Kaduna, the issue of mercenaries and the like, I think for me, as a person, personally, I see Governor El-Rufai just playing to the guys. There are many questions that are unanswered. The Kaduna crisis is more or less, if we call it a generational crisis, it will not be an exaggeration. Before he came on board, the crisis has always been there. But, some years before he became governor, Kaduna has been relatively peaceful. Now, what happened? What led to this escalation? That's one. Then, secondly, if you look at Kaduna warehouses almost 1/3 of the strategic arm of the military formation, including the Nigerian Defense Academy. They were all warehoused in Kaduna State. Now the question is, are you telling me that all the security agencies in Kaduna are not trained enough to be able to wipe out all these things you call terrorists that are codenamed bandits and the like in Kaduna State? So the answer is no. So it simply means that if this aggression is tailored towards a particular section, if you look at the whole signature of the bandits or terrorists in Kaduna, it's predominantly the southern Kaduna. Now you are not telling me that you are looking at mercenaries. Okay, let us even concede that you are being honest. What stops you from advocating for, the arming of the vigilantes rather than talking about mercenaries? The mercenaries that are going to come are going to also need internal aid to be able to operate within that area. You have retired officers in the military. You call them legions, you call them corps commissioners and the like.
Right.
They are all there. They are all reserved. Now, it seems that it is also possible to draw from this result. Then, of course, the most important thing when we are having security failure in this country.
Okay, let me pause you for a second. Go ahead, Tokwe.
So, you sort of you've touched on a few of the things that we've said, agreed and disagreed. I am of the opinion that nobody wins in a war, really. Nobody wins in a crisis. And every crisis will still end at the table. So, what would you say? Because right now, the governor was talking about mercenaries, which is also another process of using force to deal with the situation. The suggestion about everybody owning arms is also another way of using force to deal with the situation, when in actual fact, we know that all of these things would not resolve the problem, that it is increasing value for human life, providing basic amenities and helping people to feel comfortable. Solving the economical challenges is the best approach to solving our insecurity challenge. Do you think that the governors are approaching this in the wrong way, thinking force as opposed to looking at economical empowerment as a way to resolve these challenges?
Strategically, when you talk about a dialogue, especially when you already have the instrumentality of force on ground. Now, it's different from when there is threat of violence. But now you are no longer talking about threat of violence. You are talking about the fact that violence is already ongoing. Now, when violence is already ongoing, the first thing to do, it has to be at the battlefront, and that has to do with establishment of the supremacy. It is the state supremacy that will determine how fast the negotiation table will wind up its negotiation process. If you don't have a clear leader, if you don't have a clear boss on the battlefield, coming to the round table dialogue would be a tall order. Because on the round table dialogue, they are going to be who is going to be, more or less like in charge of the whole scenario as it is. If the bandits are taking upper hand on the war front, now they are not asking them to come to arms. They will dictate the terms. You are not going to dictate the terms. They are not going to tell you that they won't come to the negotiation table, but they are going to give you terms and conditions. Why? Because every indices shows that they are at advantage. So if you are not ready to their terms, they will now say, let's go back to the battlefield. But if you have dissipated them, if you have brought them to nothing and you are not saying, come, let us talk, that is understandable. Why? Look at President Yar'Adua before he died. What made him to succeed in the amnesty this program was because he started to himself. They have been able to bring down the militants to the extent that they could not, to even eat from the creek was a problem. They were looking for how to get out from the creek to go and buy food and survive. Right. So when President Yar'Adua now said, come, let us negotiate, let us talk, it was easy for them to quickly, fall in line.
Okay.
So if they are talking about peaceful negotiation, it's a good idea. It's actually the ultimate. We all want peace. But
thank you. Go ahead. Let me throw in one more question in for you. Go ahead.
So, thank you, sir. When you talked about what was it? There was a word you used when Maria talked that there were people, armed security agents on the train who were supposed to be protecting the train. Just yesterday.
I'm sorry, I'm not hearing.
So you talked about that there was no resistance.
Because they can have arms, but they're not given the right to shoot.
So they did not, try to defend that, the people during that attack. Just yesterday, the IG was saying they will now deploy security officers or police officers to patrol the Abuja-Kaduna road. What is your take on that exactly?
It is infeasible, and there is no reason for us to even go that route. When you can deploy drones, you can deploy CCTV cameras, even the rail itself, the train itself can carry CCTV camera in each of the coaches. With all you just need is a response team in strategic location all through the route of all railways. You cannot deploy physical manpower you are talking of a route of almost more than 100 kilometers and the like. It's infeasible, it's waste of resources and waste of manpower. As far as I'm concerned, I don't even believe that they won't even do it. I don't see them doing it. It's just more or less like on the spot comments. Because when they go to roundtable discussion and looking at the feasibility of that program or that idea.
All right, but you see, when times like this happen, I mean, it's always nice when we are reviewing things from outside in. But government will tell you that if I'm trying to build a train, and that's what the Minister for Transportation was saying, that I said it from the beginning, we need to have these CCTV cameras, we need these surveillance cameras across these regions. And maybe for whatever reason, for cost reasons, they want to cut costs. This is too expensive, we can't deploy technology. These are the realities of the time. So they're saying, for now, I would like to deploy men on that route until we're able to acquire this technology. Because technology is not readily available for us. We have to order it. There's a lot of bureaucracy, according to what Amaechi said, within the government. In your view, how much of technology can we afford the kind of technology we need to help support insecurity in Nigeria, the fight against insecurity in Nigeria? Technology that can be deployed in the train is something that even Nigerians can. I repeat it, Nigerian IT guys, we do something better. And I can tell you with all audacity, it costs nothing for Nigerian IT guys, for Nigerian security, those in electronics and equipment, to install CCTV camera in all the coaches, have perfect control system. It costs next to not even that much that the Honorable Minister is talking about, except for the fact that we're already too much cost when it comes to governance and government projects and government activities and the like. Whatever the minister is asking from the National Assembly, if you give 10% of it, I just don't want to mention electoral and security engineering companies, just 10% of it, they will do far better. So it's not a matter of it's expensive and all those things. It's a matter of are we truly ready or we're just looking for means to make extra money. All right, we have to wrap up with you very soon, but there's something I want to ask you. Because when Russia invaded Ukraine and the war came to their doorstep, this wasn't it came to their country. What they did, part of what they did was that they said all their able-bodied men should stay home to fight. All the women and children were allowed to move to neighboring countries. Now, somebody will say in Nigeria, the war have not really reached us, because if it had reached every single home, all these men that are standing around, hanging around, maybe it's time we arm them. And that's what the honorable member was saying in the House, that we have a lot of men. We actually have capacity as citizens against these bandits. But we are so comfortable. So do you think if we put a system in place where certain people begin to have permits to get armed and can defend themselves and the properties and their neighborhoods, do you think we can really see that we can then begin to see a solution in sight for this insecurity issue we're dealing with?
The best solution as it is now is the political will. There is a difference between public comment, media directives, and marching order. I will repeat this. If a president gives true marching order and underline my choice of words to all the service chiefs and say, I give you 3 months, I don't get Boko Haram or bandits. Alternatively, if you cannot resign, it will shock you. It will shock you. But the president, as far as some of us are concerned, is not giving the necessary marching order. The problem is not with the capacity of the military formation of this country. The problem is not with the capability or with the issue of arms and ammunition. No. In fairness to the president, he has even procured more arms and ammunition than previous government. But what is he doing with the Tucano? What is he doing with all the arms and ammunition that have been bought recently? Are they not meant to fight and terrorists? Are they meant for museums? So the issue is, even if we are armed and we defend ourselves, and the government is not coming up with required political will, look at what Amoteku is doing, even without being properly armed. Now just imagine that the government is not coming out to say, we support you. You know they will perform wonders. But in this same government, you have government that will oppose and fight, fight an Eastern Security Network, fight Amoteku, fight other security agencies, non-state actors that are expected to complement, rather than say, come, let us work in synergy. So the problem is not related with let's defend ourselves and we can bear arms. But if the government is not ready to even support you that bears arms in your house, that arm can also be used against you legally. So as far as I'm concerned, the government is not coming out with the real and true political will, giving the necessary marching order to all security agencies. If they do, I will tell you, you will be proud of your security agency.
All right, thank you very, very much, sir. I mean, it was been speaking with Mr. Tony Ofuyeto. He's a chief security expert, and he shared his thoughts on this issue of insecurity. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Let's go on a break now and come back, move on to another topic. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned. Your View will be right back.